What's up, guys? Justin here with the CGEssentials.com, back with another Blender add-on video for you. So as many of you know, the Blender Market Black Friday sale is running through the end of the day today. I wanted to make sure that I covered one of my favorite add-ons for Blender before that sale was over. So Fluent Materializer is one of my favorite add-ons because it gives you the ability to quickly add things like edge wear and other things like that to your models. So I thought we could walk through the way that it works. So let's go ahead and just jump into it. So you can download Fluent Materializer by visiting the CGEssentials.com/Fluent Materializer. And so this tool comes with a lot of different options for basically building out a node tree that's going to allow you to add things like edge wear and other things like that. You can add grunge, you could add imperfections, just a ton of stuff to make your models look more used and realistic. In addition, it also comes with this cool shader ball model that you can use in order to practice working with your different mixed nodes. But I thought we'd talk through kind of how it works by jumping over into Blender. All right, so make sure that you've enabled Fluent Materializer in order to access these different nodes. But what we usually do is we usually set up an object mode window over here and then a node editor over here on the right hand side. So we've got our shader editor off to the right hand side. Notice how right now there's no materials or anything really applied to this other than this just generic principled BSDF. And so the way that this tool works is it works by adding different layers on top of each other. So what we want to do right now, for example, is we want to add a new layer to add a color to our object. So we're just going to tap on the F key, and we're just going to add a new layer right here. Well, then from there, what we want to do is we've got our layer right here, and we want to bring the colors and metallic and all the maps that come out of this, we want to plug them into our principled BSDF. So I'm going to drag my metallic into my metallic, my roughness into my roughness, my normal into my normal. And so far nothing's really changed, right? But the first thing we can do is we can add a color to this. So maybe we'll add a color like this one right here. And so notice how all this is doing right now is this is just giving us a color. And you could adjust things like your roughness in order to make this reflect a little bit more if you decided you wanted to do that. But there's nothing really interesting going on with this right now. It's literally just a color. You'd pretty much get the same result if you changed your color over here. But now what we want to do though is we want to start adding some imperfection maps to this object. And what those imperfection maps are going to do is they're going to make this look a certain way. So right now this looks like a completely brand new object. Well, what we can do is over here on the right hand side of the page, if you tap the N key inside of your shader editor, there's going to be a Fluent tab. And so if we take this Fluent tab, notice how this gives us a library of different things like imperfections, like liquids. So you can make this look like it's got water stains or water drops on it, as well as different other materials on here. So you can make it look like a fabric or something like that. For now, all I want to do is I just want to add an imperfection map to this. So let's add some dents to this object. So let's go ahead and let's add the dented to object in here. So notice how when I clicked on it, that brings this in. Well, what this is this is something that's going to plug into our layer right here. So what we can do is we can drag our normal to our normal. Well, notice how now, if I zoom in on this, this has changed our normal map of our object so it looks like the object is dented. Well, what we can do is we can adjust the size of this using the slider. We can also adjust the strength to set how pronounced that is, as well as the seed, which is going to allow us to set the randomization of this object. Notice how what this did is this allowed us to quickly add these dents to this object procedurally. And so now what we have is we have an object that looks a little bit more realistic, right? Because it looks like it's been like beat up and tossed around and all of that. Well, now what we want to do is we can stack these layers on top of each other. So right now this has a bunch of dents on it. Well, I also want to add some scratches to it. And so the way that you could do that is you could just click right here and you could add a scratches imperfection map to the same thing. So I could select maybe this scratches normal, for example. Well, notice how all I have to do is just drag that normal into the normal right here. And so then what you're going to notice is, first off, this has to go back and recompile the shader, meaning it's going to reload all of this. But notice how what that did is that came in here and that stacked our scratches on top of our dented right here. And so notice how these scratches are really pronounced right now, right? Well, what we can do is we can just bring the strength of the scratches down to something more like this. So you can adjust the strength of them by adjusting the strength right here. You could also adjust the scale of the scratches so that they look bigger or smaller. And so right now we've basically applied one effect. We've applied an effect. It's got two things stacked on top of each other, but basically what we've done is we've used this in order to just change the normals of this one color. Well, let's say that we wanted to also do something where we mask out the edges so that they look worn. Well, what we could do is we're just going to add a new node in here, because what we want is we want to mix two different effects together. So I'm just going to tap the F key in here, and notice how there's an option in here for mix layers. Okay, and so what the mix layer function is going to do is it's going to take two layers of objects and mix them together, and it's going to use a mask to determine which one goes where. So for now, we want to drag all of this into the color 2. So we're going to set our color 2, our metallic 2, our roughness 2, and our normal 2. And so when we do that, notice how this is going to look the same way that it did before, right? So once it compiles, it's going to look this way. Now, if we were to drag this mask all the way to the left, notice how it's just going to be this orange color. So this is basically just putting these two things together into a single color. Well, what we want to do is we want to add another layer up above that adds white around our edges. And so the way that we're going to do that is we're going to add two nodes. So first off, we want to add a grunge node. So we're going to go into our grunges right here, and we just want to select one of these grunges. In this case, I'm just going to select this one right here. And so what we could do is we could take this grunge map result and just drag it directly into our mask right here. So what that would do is that would basically tell this, okay, for the result on the grunge map, show through this other material, right? And so then we could set this to like a white material, like this. And so notice how what it's doing is it's basically showing the white material anywhere the grunge map shows up in here. And then you could use this in order to set how strong that effect was going to be. You could set that, you could adjust the scale of that as well as the coverage right here. And notice how we're getting some interesting results depending on where we drag that. However, what we want is we specifically want this to work with our edges, right? We only want this to add this white material around the edges. And so what we're going to do is we're going to tap the F key and we're going to add a mask edges right here. And we're going to drag this over. And so when we do that, what we want is we want our result to go into our texture right here, and we want our mask to go into our mask right here. And so notice what that's doing is that's basically masking this out so our turquoise color only shows up around the edges. So what we're going to do is we're just going to switch all of these maps to the 1 slot instead of the 2 slot. So I'm just going to drag all of the turquoise colors up into the 1 slots. Well, then I'm going to take the 2 slot and I'm going to make that a white color like this. And so basically what that means is this is masking out the turquoise material using the grunge map around all of the edges so that it looks like the edges have all been kind of like worn down. And you can adjust how strong or not strong that effect is by adjusting the distance right here. So a value of 0.001 is probably going to give us the result that we're looking for. All right, so if you're interested in Fluent Materializer, you can check that out at the link on this page. I'll also link to some other tutorials I've done about it as well. But leave a comment below, let me know what you think about this add-on. As always, thank you so much for taking the time to watch this, and I will catch you in the next video. Thanks, guys.